Hey everyone, today we are going to look at Deepin Desktop. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to install Deepin from an Arch perspective. Now a lot of people feel that your best Deepin experience overall comes from the original Deepin image from the Deepin website. However, there's a few caveats that come with that. One of them is that you gotta agree to a EULA license agreement. That doesn't always go well with a lot of people, especially if you're really an open source person. And there's other little things, you know, like the package manager is really nice, but some people feel like that you're giving up a password that you might be sharing with the developers. Debatable. And the other downside, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, is that it's Debian based. So your apps tend to be a little bit older, and it seems to be a little more behind because of that. Now there's other options with that, to be fair, because you can use app images and flat packs. You can backport to the Debian repository, the latest, and all that good stuff. So there are options there. But if you wanted, like, say, an alternative to the original Deepin, but you wanted to stay in Debian, then probably Ubuntu DDE would be a nice alternative there to that. But me, I'm an Arch person, so I like to have things in Arch. And I feel like that ArcoLinux is probably the best Arch alternative to the original Deepin Desktop. So we're going to have Deepin Desktop environment on Arch using ArcoLinux, which is one of my top favorite distros out there. Arco is really a great, solid system. And ArcoLinux has a really cool philosophy on their website. So there's a lot of ways you can install ArcoLinux, even along the traditional lines and so forth. And a lot of people that aren't familiar with ArcoLinux might find all these different choices. You have ArcoLinux, ArcoLinuxD, ArcoLinuxB. You might find them all kind of confusing. Like, what? And so, yeah, it is a little confusing in the beginning, but they're really worth kind of knowing if you want to go out there and explore it sometime. However, if you just want to have an ISO that's specific to one desktop with it all pre-configured for you, the best way to go then it would be with an ArcoLinuxB. ArcoLinuxB would do that, and they even have a build your own ISO option there. So if we go over here to downloads, then you'll see our download pages here, and we have our different choices: ArcoLinux, ArcoLinuxD, and ArcoLinuxB. And then we have different mirrors here where we can get them from. And then they're also available in a torrent if you want the ArcoLinux or the ArcoLinuxD. However, we want to go with B, so I'm going to go ahead and just check on this. And now you can see that we have a lot of different desktops that we can choose from here. So we're going to go ahead and select Deepin. And so here, our very top choice here is a 2.2 gig ISO. So I'm going to go ahead and download this ISO, and then I'm going to boot into it, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we're in the desktop, live desktop, and here we have our welcome app right off the bat. And then we have our dock down below, which looks like it's in fashion mode right now. And we set our mode by right-clicking, and here we got the fashion, and then efficient mode, which is more the traditional look where you have your dock right here along the bottom. And then, of course, your menu over here, which is pretty cool. I always like their menu. And you can even shrink their menu if you kind of want a more traditional look here. Or you can bring it up here like this and hit this guy. Nice. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I like them both. I think I'll just kind of go with fashion mode right now, but I think I'd be kind of torn here. When in doubt, use them both. And I probably will. So anyway, here we have our welcome app, and these are our different choices. We have our update Arch Linux mirrors, Arch Linux Calamares tool. I'm assuming that's like where you can, you know, like maybe change your file system and do little tweaks like that before you install. Gparted, so you can set up your drive in advance before you run Calamares. Especially handy if you want to have a separate partition for your home folder, or you just want to have different partitions and have them customized the way you want it. And then, of course, we have our Run Calamares. Now normally I would just skip over this whole install thing. Calamares is very straightforward and it's super easy to install Linux with Calamares. That's one of the things I really like about it. But in ArcoLinux, it's a little bit different. It has some things in the beginning where you can choose your own kernel, for example, and applications, a lot of different things like that. So you got a lot of choices right at the beginning. So instead of skipping over the install, I think I'll just kind of cover the first part of the install, since that's a little bit different, and then the rest of it we'll probably just kind of skip over that and get right into the good stuff. First of all, I think I'll just hit this update Linux mirrors, just so we have the latest mirror list. Here it's showing that it may take some time. Uh-oh, I hope it's not too much time. Nope, not at all. Nice. Okay, so now we can go onward and upward. So now it's opening up the Calamares installer, and as you can see, it's got all these different steps here. These are all the different things that you can install in the beginning. Your choice of kernel, drivers, communication, apps, development, office, multimedia, all the way down to about here, the ArcoLinux development apps. Once we get past here, then we're back to our standard install, and I'll probably skip over all the other stuff like the location, keyboard, partitions, and users, all that. That's stuff that you've seen a million times before, but this is a little bit different. This is kind of more unique to our ArcoLinux installs. Well, let's go ahead and hit next because American English is our default. And so now, right off the bat, it's asking us for what kernel do you want to install. So we got our first choice to install the latest Linux kernel, which may not necessarily be the one on this ISO. It's going to go ahead and pull the newest kernel that's out there if the one on the ISO isn't already the newest. And then we have our Linux LTS kernel for those who prefer older, more stable. That's especially a good choice if you have older hardware. Then we have our Linux hardened kernel, Zen kernel. That's cool. You know what? I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to choose the Zen kernel. And that'll upgrade to the latest Zen kernel anyway after the install. So yeah, I'm just going to do that just to be cool. You got to be one of the cool kids, right? And let's see, I'm also running an Intel chipset on this computer. So I think I'll go with the Intel microcode as well. Check that box and I'll hit next. And now we have our choices of drivers, and I also have an Intel chipset on this computer. Really prefer Intel type chipsets. Just kind of a taste, I guess. And so then we have all these other nice choices, NVIDIA and CUDA and all that other stuff, even NVIDIA related apps. Just take a look under there. Oh yeah, Bumblebee, Disper. All right, nice. Next, communication apps. We got even Teamviewer on here, nice. Discord. I think I'll go with KRDC and Ramina. And yeah, that's, I guess, good for this example anyway. And then we have our development stuff here, which is always fun for me. Code, Emacs, Genie. Genie's a nice text editor, a good all-arounder. Kdevelop's really nice. Visual Studio Code, that's kind of almost a must-have if you're into coding. Code up here is the same thing, I believe. I think probably that Visual Studio Code bin is the Microsoft release of the code editor, and then Code up here is, I think, a fork. Could be wrong, but I think that's kind of how that goes. I'm going to go with Code. Usually when someone makes a fork, there's a good reason, so what the fork? I'm going to take the fork. All right, now we have Abby Word, Calligra, Focuswriter, and all these different Office apps here. A lot of people choose the LibreOffice. I like that we have a choice here, so we can have no Office suite if we want to. Personally, I like WPS Office, and I like Only Office too. In fact, I think I'll just check that one. Only Office, to me, it seems like lately that does everything WPS Office does, but it's lighter. I kind of like that. And it's fully open source. Multimedia. Audacity, that's kind of a must-have. Hypnotics is cool. That's that cool TV app with internet TV. Kdenlive, that's always a must. Lollipop, nice. Obs Studio, I would always do that. I was doing a daily driver. And I would probably go with VLC. Onward and upward, internet browsers. And here we have Firefox Adblock Plus. I guess I'll go ahead and choose that. I like that we have a locale version here too. That's great. So if you live in another country like Korea, China, Germany, wherever, you can download Firefox tailored to your locale and your language. So that's a nice option there. Very cool. And then there's Google Chrome if you want to go with something more proprietary. Although I would probably choose Chromium myself. Midori, nice. Opera, Qubit Torrent, I'll take that. And Vivaldi. So yes, all the greats are in here. Even Brave. And theming. So we got a lot of extra theming options here that we can add in addition to your default Deepin theme. And that's kind of cool. In fact, when it comes to themes, I don't think you can have too many themes. So I'm going to choose them all by selecting the top box. Why not? And now graphics. Okay, so on a daily driver, I would just automatically choose Blender, GIMP, and Inkscape right off the bat. Probably for fun, I would add the other stuff too, because they're all great. And I really like Krita too, especially if you're painting and drawing and creating. Now we got our gaming software. Lots of good stuff. And Lutris, that's definitely a must-have if you're a serious gamer and you want to play stuff on Linux, especially things that are really Windows-oriented you can do. Neverball, I never heard of that. But it has a cool name, so I'm going to just check it just because it's a cool name. Neverball. And Play on Linux, yeah. If this was my daily driver, I would definitely do that too. Play on Linux is really a no-brainer for me. Not only is it great for installing games, but it's great for installing all kinds of Windows apps. It really makes it easy. And then next we have our choice of extra terminals. The default terminal in Deepin is the Deepin terminal. If you want to add some extra ones, here we have choices. And console's nice. I like console. Alacrity, yeah, why not stick that in there? What the heck? And now we even have choice of extra file managers. The default in Deepin, I think, is just called Deepin File Manager. But if you want to add something else in, like Dolphin or Nautilus, Nemo, PC Man, any of these guys, File Roller, Nemo, Ranger, you got your choice. Or you can skip them. And then we have utilities we can choose from. So if you want to add some extra utilities in here, like events, although Deepin already has a PDF viewer, so you probably don't. Flatpak, I'd probably go with that. Google Earth Pro, that's cool. I wonder if you can use Google Earth Pro as a free user. And I know they have two separate apps like Google Earth and Google Earth Pro. So yeah, not really sure there. I think you have to download Google Earth if you just want the total free version. And Pro might need a license or something. So yeah, I'll probably skip that one. Okay, backup. You can never have too many backups. LSHW is quite handy. But a lot of these, they already have equivalents in Deepin versions, like the screen fetch and stuff like that. Time shift, that's always a winner. And YouTube DL, yep, why not? And now we got our accessories. Yeah, the YouTube DL is handy with library. We got Cheese. I always liked Cheese. That was one thing I liked in GNOME was Cheese. That's kind of a cool app. It's nice for testing your camera too. Calculator. Again, a lot of these, you already got it covered in Deepin, but it's awesome to have these extra choices. Nomax is a nice image viewer here. ArcoLinux Plank themes, Screen Key, XF Burn. There's a nice CD burner. So yeah, password manager, KeePass. Yeah, that's a great secure way to store your passwords. And image writer, yes, nice. And it even has VirtualBox. I like that. Even though I'm a KVM Virt Manager user, I like the choice here with VirtualBox. It looks like it does here. By default, it's going to check all these things. I know in a lot of distros, it seems like when you install VirtualBox, it never just works. There's always something broke. And then you got to download all this extra stuff to get it going. And then you got to, I forgot, you got to do like run a couple commands to get it going. Sometimes you can get away with just rebooting and it'll work. So that's what I always try first. And a lot of times that just does the trick. But you need those other things installed. So that's a great thing that you have that choice right up front. And now here's our development apps. I'm assuming here that Firefox and FlameShot and Simple Screen Recorder and all these apps here are beta versions, like the newest, maybe nightly builds or whatever, because it does say software for ArcoLinux developers and beta testers. So I'm kind of assuming it's along that line. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what it sounds like to me. So I'm just going to skip that one. And now we're back to our normal install, where we just choose our location and all that other stuff. So I don't think I'll just really bore you with all that, because that's all the same old, same old. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish this install. I'll pause the video and then I'll meet you back after the install. Okay, and we are in. So now we can take over the world. Or we can just check out the desktop. So we got our welcome app here now. And the difference is that we have our welcome app, but we don't have the Calamares button, of course. We can update our Arch Linux mirrors if we like, again, just make them really update. So I'll just type in the password, let it update, and now we can explore and see what's up. So one thing I did notice with the ArcoLinux version here, flavor, when it booted in, this bar down here at the bottom, the panel, did take a little bit longer to load in these processes over here than like when I tried out, say, the original Deepin Desktop. And I think I even tried a spin of Manjaro maybe a couple weeks ago with the Deepin, and this seemed to load quicker in those. I don't know why, but other than that, it seems to be pretty snappy. And that initial load, I'm not sure what the deal is, but just thought I'd point it out. So I'm going to go ahead and close this guy, and maybe I'll turn off the auto start and just kind of hit that. Nice. Okay, so nice welcome screen there. And then we have all our icons down here. And of course, right now we're in fashion mode. And that kind of gives it that, I don't know, Big Sur look, I guess. If you're coming over from Mac, that's probably going to be relatively comfortable. Down here is our efficient mode, which gives you a more traditional. So now we have our taskbar at the bottom. And of course, over here is our launcher. By default, it's full screen, which is pretty nice. I really like this. And then we have our little dots down here you can click on if you want to page over, or you can slide it with your mouse like that. Or if you have a touch screen like I do, I can just reach over and touch the screen and just kind of slide it over. Whoops. Except you got to be careful, I guess. Yeah. So just kind of stay away from the icons. Yeah, so we can slide it over, or you can use your mouse wheel and just kind of roll the wheel and it'll slide over that way too. So that's really cool. And you can also click up here in the upper right corner and shrink it, and then you have a smaller guy here, and it looks like we got them all in maybe alphabetical order, kind of similar to Windows 10, I guess. And you can also go here to your different shortcuts. You can have direct access to, like, say, your video folder, and it'll pop you right up in there. and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool too. I like that. Direct access to your settings right there. And if we go back to big screen again, we can go up in our upper left corner and hit this, and then we can kind of view it by categories, which makes it, I think, kind of nicer. You know, that's neat. So I can look at my music apps, my video related apps here where we got VLC, Hypnotics, voice notes, cool. So a lot of cool things. OBS Studio, and then our graphics applications, which if you remember right, I installed Blender, Inkscape, and GIMP. So those are in there. Nice. Then we have our games, and there's, oh, that's Never Putt and Never Ball. So I guess they're related. Must have put that in there as an extra. Let's take a look. Ooh, Never Ball. I actually installed that by curiosity because I could bore you for hours on this. It is actually kind of addicting though. That's kind of cool. And I'm gonna go in there. Yay! Made it to the next level. I am the all-powerful one. Okay, so that's Never Ball. Nice. All right. Onward and Upward. And Never Putt, that's actually looks kind of cool too. A little putting game there. And we got Office. And there's our only Office. So that's great. Looks like that installed. Let's see how quickly that comes up. Not bad. Create a new document right away. Wow. Pretty snappy. Maybe not so snappy when I close it. But I think I'd rather just open the document by itself, just a Word or an Excel. And speaking of snappiness, let's run HTOP real quick just to kind of see where we're at in our resources. And yeah, it looks like it's running about 2 gigs. That's a little up there, I think. Of course, we got to consider that I'm running OBS Studio as well. If you look down here, we got at least 700 megs here, 702 allocated to that. And then another OBS process, almost a couple hundred there, and a bunch. Yeah, so it looks like a lot of this is OBS. So I guess we can't really get a real accurate what that idling would be, but I would guess it would probably be around maybe a gig, 900 something, clean. I'll have to check that out on a clean boot, and maybe I'll just stick that in the description when I get a chance. So yeah, HTOP. I guess I didn't think about the OBS part of it, the OBS factor. And then here's our development app. So we got Code OSS in here, and I'm pretty sure that is Visual Studio Code, the fork, because I remember running that before. So yeah, very nice. So if you like to do some coding, that's the way to go. That's a great way to go anyway. And then we have our system stuff here, our print manager, font, calculator, control center, file manager. And I think we started off over here, internet apps. So we got our Firefox, QBitTorrent. Nice, all right. So there you have it. On the menu layout. Then we have our calendar over here. We're actually back in the, I forgot what they call it, efficient mode. I think I'm going to jump up into fashion mode again. I kind of like that better, actually. You know, long time ago, I always kind of ran it in efficient mode because I like that look better. But in the newer Deepin, I kind of like this better, actually. So I think I'm going to go with that. And then, of course, we have over here, I think that's our show desktop right there. And then this guy is our task. I forgot what they call it exactly, but it shows your open tasks here. And then your different desktops, which each have different backgrounds. That's pretty cool. So if we jumped out of there, now we're on a different desktop with a different background. Very nice. And you can even add more, so you can have a gazillion desktops if you want. Excellent. So back to our desktop one, and then of course we have our shortcuts here right in the middle, and here's our file manager, which looks quite gorgeous. Wow. Of course, you know, that's Deepin. Deepin has the reputation for being one of the prettiest desktop environments out there. And I would have to agree with that. I think the only thing that can maybe rival Deepin is the GRUD Dragonized. GRUD Linux is really awesome, and it's gorgeous, and probably has more stability, I would say, than maybe the Deepin and Arch. Although so far this is looking really good. So I think the people at ArcoLinux has really got this kind of together here pretty nice. So yes, looks really great. Our home folder, desktop, videos, music, pictures, all pretty empty right now, of course, understandably so. Yeah, very nice looking, and even has our LAN computers. That's great. And if we go up here in our settings, we even have a theme here, so we could, wow, looks like we could tailor our theme right in here. So I could have this as a dark theme and my overall theme a light theme. That's really neat. I'm pretty sure I can do in reverse, so I could make this a light theme and have my overall theme a dark theme, and I think that'll stay bright. So that is cool. I just now discovered that. Didn't realize that was there. Really cool. And of course you can align it with your system theme as well. Huh. Well, learn something new every day. And then we have our basic open behaviors, all our different settings here that you would probably expect to see. Hit auto mount. That's kind of nice. That'll automatically mount like a U drive or something. And then show hidden files by default. You can click that if you want to see them right away. Otherwise you can use the shortcut key Control H, and that will toggle your hidden files on and off. Yes, settings look very easy to manage. And now let's look at it. Over here on this side, we got all our different things in our task manager. Looks like we got variety here for our desktop wallpaper. That's kind of cool. So if I click this wallpaper selector, then it'll bring up all the different cool stuff that we have in here right now. So a lot of beautiful wallpapers, it looks like. That's a nice tropical scene there. Even a panorama. Wow. Yeah, it's got some cool wallpapers to choose from. And of course, a variety pulls some stuff off the website too, off of a couple different websites, and we'll kind of download them periodically. So that, if I remember right, kind of fills up with more stuff to choose from as you go. Yeah, pretty nice backgrounds. Even a fuzzy one. So I think maybe I'll kind of go with that for now. So I'll jump back up here and undo the wallpaper selector. Then we have our other stuff like our speaker, headphones. I like that. And then our network settings and our Bluetooth. And this will close it, of course. And then over here we got our notifications, and that's pretty nice how it pops out from the side there. Really cool. And it looks like we got some updates available. I'll just click on that and say thanks. And then over here we got our virtual keyboard. So if we want to be touchscreen only, or we don't have access to our keyboard, but we got a touchscreen, then we can just use that and type up there, either with our fingers or with our mouse. So if your battery dies and you got an emergency command you got to pop in, you're still covered. And then of course our power if you want to log out, reboot, shut down and all that. And our trash. Nice. And then we have our clock. Last but not least, click on it and it comes up with this beautiful calendar. Nice and big, and Looks really great. And then you can even sort by year and month by default, and even weekly, which is nice because then you can kind of put a planner in there, add your events, and then keep track of things you got to do. Very nice. And then even daily. So you can jump in here and fine-tune it right down to different times of the day. Very nice. All right. So that's a great little feature right there. Not bad. Let's take a look at our settings. So we'll jump in here. There's our settings manager. And if we go into accounts, we got my user here. And I'm a standard user. It looks like it created me by default. And so here I can change my password. Click on the little icon and you can change your little face there. So that's kind of cool. That looks like a cubby hole. I like the parrot. All right, and then here's our display settings, which if I was in VirtualBox, this is where I typically go to set my display. But I'm on a real computer this time because we're going to get a better experience with Deepin on a real computer. And then here's our brightness. So if it's just too bright, we can back it off here or bring it up. And then we have our display scaling, which is really nice. I have an old netbook, and if you install Linux on that netbook, the display by default is really super tiny. You need a magnifying glass just to see anything. It's kind of crazy. And so you can either use a really kind of a screwy resolution to kind of make it readable, or you could use the scaling to bump it up and give it a more normal look that way. And the fact that you have the fractional scaling available is even cooler. And depending on your resolution, you're going to have different options here. And then we have our refresh rate by 60 by default, which is where it should be for me in the US here. And then we have our touchscreen settings. Nice. So it automatically acknowledges my touchscreen. I like that. So it's kind of telling me that touchscreen support is really well done here. And then we have our default applications. And I really like the way they have this kind of laid out. Like if we go into our text here, we got all these different things to choose from. And switching your default text editor is easy peasy. All you have to do is just select another one. Like maybe I want Genie as my default. So I can just click on it and it's automatically checked and set. So now Genie is my default text editor. Or I can just go back to text editor. And if I want to add something totally different, I can just run down here and hit this plus button and choose another text app. But typically they're going to show up here anyway if it's already installed. Then we have our music, and our default player right now is music player, and I think that's fine, although Lollipop's pretty cool. Maybe I'll just switch it. And then we have video and VLC player. I'm good with that. And our default picture player is Nomax, our picture viewer. And I'm good with that too, actually. Although image viewer is good. But actually Nomax I think might even be a little better. And then we have here our terminal. So our default, of course, is the Deepin terminal. But if I wanted to change it to Alacrity or Termite or one of these other guys, I got my choices. Nice. Then we have our personalization. So right now we're in auto, which means that it'll probably be light theme in the daytime and at night it'll change to dark. That's kind of cool. If I wanted it just dark right now, there you go. Our taskbar is dark. Our background up here is dark. I think that might have been dark anyway. So now we got this nice dark look, and if we go in here, it should still be light. And it is. And the reason for that, if you remember right, is we can set our theming here. So I could make that dark as well, but in a dark theme, personally, I just like a light background on the file viewer. So I think that's really cool. I like that separate choice that they give you for the file manager separately. That's cool. And then here's our network connections for our wired and our wireless. DSL, VPN, proxy, application proxy, really a lot of details here. And even our MAC information. Then here's our notification settings, and this is pretty cool. We have do not disturb settings here for different things. We can choose to show our icon on the dock or not to. Very nice. Let's say we have an app that's kind of drives us nuts with notifications, like screensaver or something. We can have it not play a sound, so we can turn that off. We could turn this off. We could, you know, do any of it. We could even opt not to show the notification at all. Lots of options here. We can turn it off altogether for no notifications. So options to tweak all over the place and everywhere in between. That's really nice. Here we have our sound settings, and right now our output is set to our speakers by default. And I could make that headphones if I used headphones all the time. The sound settings, I think, is really nice because it makes it really easy to just adjust your settings and get to. I think that's really cool. And here's our input settings, of course, which you can see I have it hooked up to my microphone right now, and even has an automatic noise suppression feature. How cool is that? And then sound effects. And it's off by default, which I like that, because in the Deepin, if you put in the original Debian Deepin, I remember the sound effects were always kind of enabled by default, and to me that's kind of annoying. So I like to see that they're off by default. That's something I kind of like, just a personal preference there. And then we have Bluetooth, and it's automatically scanning all kinds of Bluetooth devices. Nice. Then we have our date and time settings. So we got our time zone list. Nice. And so right now we're in New York, which is GMT -5. So that's perfect. That works for me. But I could even change it very easily just down here and adding to the list by editing. Nice. Then we have our time settings, which I have it at auto sync right now. And it looks pretty accurate, 10:35 a.m. This is on 24-hour time right now, which I kind of prefer. I'm kind of a 24-hour time guy. But it's just flick this switch here if you want to go to 12. And then our time format, which I like the format already just by default, having this and then the date underneath. And lots of options. Very nice. And then here, and so you can format your long date or your short date and your long date. So you can even make it look more traditional with the day. And then you can even set the first day of the week. Very cool. And then here we got our power settings. And right now it's set on a balanced plan. And your plugged in settings. So here you can tell it when to suspend your monitor or never. Suspend after so many minutes or never. Or lock your screen after so long or never. And when pressing, do nothing. Otherwise, and this I'm pretty sure is referring to the power button. So I guess if you press the power button, if you hold it in for 5 seconds, it's probably going to shut down. But if you just press it, right now it'll do nothing. But if I wanted it to suspend or just simply turn off the monitor, I could select one of these items or shut down. And then when you tap that power button, it'll do one or the other. And then we have mouse settings. By default, it's just fine the way it is, but here you can set your double clicking speed and your scrolling, and you can even test it down here. So I can double click and the little kitty comes up, and double click again and it'll hide again. So that's a great double click test there. So that way if you're, you know, like having trouble with your double click, this is the way to do it. And for you lefties, here's where you can change your mouse. That way you don't have to flip your mouse upside down to use it. Just use this button instead. So that's always a plus. Let's just go over here and I'm going to right click on this, which will return it back to a right-handed mouse. So now if I left click, it's really a left click for me. So cool. We're all good. Then we have our keyboard settings here. We have our general, keyboard layout, language, and shortcuts. All right, and then our system info. So here we got our info, and it gives our PC info here, which is nice. Showing we got 16 gigs of RAM, i7 processor, our 5.11.13 Zen kernel, which is the latest as of the time of this video, 64-bit rolling Arch Linux. And then here we got our edition license with all the good stuff, GPL standard stuff, and our EULA, which we don't have to look at since we are in the Arch version. But like I said near the beginning of the video, there was a EULA. Like if you go and get the original Deepin from the Deepin website, you do got to agree to a EULA when you install it, which does make some people uncomfortable. So yeah. And then our general settings. So here we have our boot menu settings, and by default we have the ArcoLinux at boot up, and then here you can set your startup delay or have no delay if you want to turn it off. And then even switch your theme. That's kind of cool. And then here it'll update. I was just kind of looking to see if you could actually adjust your delay from in here, maybe developer mode. And if you're a little bit advanced, you can add in your custom themes and all that if you want that. And that's at the boot menu when you first turn on your computer. So yeah, it's not really anything related to our desktop environment once we're booted in. Yeah, this desktop looks great. I mean, I can see why people would want to use this as a daily driver. And if I were to use Deepin every day, me personally, I would certainly go with the Arch spin. And ArcoLinux, I think, is a great choice for that. If I wanted to stay Arch-based, the only other alternative to ArcoLinux that I can think of is probably Manjaro. Manjaro has a image out from January 18th of 2021 as of the time of this video, and that's their most current image. ArcoLinux is in March, I think the 21st of March. Right now, as of the time of this video, it's April 14th. So the image is a lot newer in the ArcoLinux archives. Not that that probably makes a lot of difference. Manjaro is going to be a little bit older anyway because they delay a little bit between updates because they want to kind of make double sure that things are stable. So that could be a plus for Manjaro, but at the same time, you got to wait longer. So it's really kind of a personal thing again. But I've always liked ArcoLinux. I've run lots of spins of Arco, and I have it on a couple of my machines, and I also install it for other people. I'm a fan of ArcoLinux. It's really a nice distro to go with if you want to try out, especially if you want to try out different ways of installing Arch. ArcoLinux does give you a lot of different methods, and they kind of have it structured in a way where you can follow a path of learning the Arch way of things, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. But again, like I said in the beginning of the video, you can use ArcoLinuxB if you just want to have something a little bit more pre-set up for you and tailored to a specific desktop. And so, yes, I'm really liking this, and I think I'm going to keep this on this computer for a little while and just play with it. Give it a week or two and just see how it goes. See if I run into any bugs, anything that is really annoying, or if it just continues to be a nice, smooth experience. And I guess the other thing I forgot to show you is if you want to send something to the desktop, you can just go right inside your menu here, hit send to desktop, and then if we want to, we can take Firefox and drag it down into our bar down here. And there we have a copy now, so now it's attached. Let's go ahead and right click on it. New window. And it looks like it opened up fairly quickly, so that's a big plus. Nice. So I guess my overall review on the ArcoLinux Deepin spin is, I think this is really worth looking at. So I'm going to keep this on the machine. I'm going to run it for a couple of weeks and just kind of see how it goes. And really, right now, I don't have any complaints at all, except maybe the the taskbar at the bottom. When you first log in, it takes at least 10 seconds, sometimes 15, for over here all these items here to load up in our system tray. And before that loads up, you can't do anything. You can't open up any apps or anything. So you got to wait for this system tray to load up. And so that's really slow, and I'm not quite sure what the deal is with that. I remember evaluating a spin of Manjaro not too long ago with the Deepin Desktop on it, and this part loaded up right away, right when you logged in. So that's the only quirk here that I'm seeing in ArcoLinux. Something I can live with, but that's not ideal. I'd like to see that kind of get resolved in an update. So I guess that's the only complaint that I would have right at the moment. But once that is launched and it gets kicked in, then you're fine from there. You just gotta wait that extra 15 seconds or so right at login. And so that's a little bit annoying, but other than that, it looks like it's working great. So there you have it. I hope this review of the Deepin Desktop on ArcoLinux was helpful. Don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.